Hello and welcome, this is Mousegunner and we're back with some more BattleTech and my continued look at the backer beta build and the single player skirmish mode that is currently the only mode available. And I'm going to be doing yet another very experimental build, or gimmicky build as I think is more appropriate. And this time around, I'm going to be doing a build that I call Cool Run-Ins. And the idea behind this particular build is to have all of the most heat-efficient mechs in the game as far as the stats provided. And I'm also emphasizing pilots that have high gut skill, which is going to help with heat or dealing with heat. So my opponent is going to be the heavy striker lance, which I think is more or less the exact opposite of this build in that they have very hot running mechs. Now, with this build, I'm ending up quite a bit below the maximum 25 million of the war level, but I didn't want to go down to the battle level because I couldn't get it in below that level. And frankly, I want to see what happens when I face an opponent that is higher value than me. So this is an experiment in a couple different ways. Now, if I wanted to bring up my value, I could have by emphasizing on more expensive mechs, but I wanted to showcase, in my opinion, the four main mechs that are very heat efficient according, again, to the stats provided in the game. So let's just go through it. The Locust is a no-brainer here. It's the most heat efficient mech pretty much in the game right now. If I used the standard variant, it would be extremely heat efficient, but I'm going a little bit higher than that. I'm going to be using the 1S variant. I don't think I've used this variant yet, so I'm going to do a little bit of experimentation with it, but it's still going to be a very heat-efficient mech. And I'm going to be using Witness as my pilot. I guess I should go over the weapons here, which I will do in a second. Now, Witness doesn't necessarily have a great gut skill, but there's only really a couple pilots that have above average gut skill, so at least we're not below averages in that level. And the Locust is the one mech that's really not going to need that better, or the pilot being able to handle the heat better. But just go over real quickly what this variant of the Locust is you're swapping out the two machine guns with two SRM2s. You are swapping out some of the armor that a Locust normally would have, so you can see the drop in durability there, in trade for the firepower. And I'm mostly doing that just so that we have some firepower, but I'm still using Witness with the sensor lock. I thought about using Paradise, which would have been more or less the same skill levels as Witness, just swapping out the abilities. But I still think the wise move here is to use the sensor lock, even if its usability will be limited in the playstyle we're going for. The next mech we'll be using is actually quite a surprise to me that it's listed as being heat efficient, is the alternate loadout of the Hunchback. So your normal Hunchback, also, according to this, fairly heat efficient, which I'm actually not too surprised with that, is the one with the AC-20. And the main reason I'm not so surprised that the heat efficiency is good with this mech is because a lot of the firepower is dependent upon a heavy ballistic weapon, and ballistic weapons are usually pretty heat efficient. And it doesn't really have a lot of firepower outside of that. But the alternate loadout of the Hunchback is very energy weapon heavy, but it's listed as being more heat efficient. So I'm not so sure how much I believe that. Now, it's quite possible that some of that is due to how many heat sinks is on this thing, which is, you know, frankly, a lot. And that may be the real reason why this is listed as being as heat efficient as it is, but we'll have to see how well this mech can handle the heat curve when we're firing off an Alpha Strike, which I'm still not sure how cool it will run. But to help with that, I have Buckshot, which is one of the pilots that has a really good guts ability, up to 8, which is as high as it goes apparently. And we do have also the ability of Bulwark, so if we stay still, we'll get the guarded trait, which is pretty good. Moving on, we have the Centurion, which is probably the least heat efficient of all the mechs we're going to be using, but it's still one of the most heat efficient mechs. And again, this is surprising because it's more heat efficient than the ballistic weapon armed standard variant. What you're doing is you're swapping out the AC-10 for a large laser and I think even a small laser on top of that. So a couple extra energy weapons. But again, I think part of this is because of the number of heat sinks that have more than likely been added on here, because it looks like the standard variant has no additional heat sinks. So that is more than likely the reason why this is more heat efficient, even though it is more energy weapon heavy. Again, we'll have to see how effective this is. Now, the pilot I used, I predominantly chose for her gunnery skill. Again, there's only a couple pilots that have above average guts, so really, we're just going to be in that average baseline. As a matter of fact, it looks like there are no pilots that have a below average, so we'll be okay here. Now, the last mech that we have is the Awesome, which is another mech that really surprises me because it's very energy weapon heavy with 3 PPCs. And I've actually used this mech in the past, and I personally didn't feel like it was that cool running. But if we can see the bar here, this is one of the most heat-efficient mechs in the game. I think the second most heat-efficient mech in the game according to its bar. Now, this is the standard variant as opposed to the other variant, which is also pretty cool running. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. What you're doing is you're trading out the PPCs for large lasers, and then you're adding on some LRM-15s. So it's not quite as heat efficient as the PPC-laden mech, but I personally think probably a little bit more firepower there, as we can see on the bar. In any case, the Awesome that we're piloting here has 3 PPCs, which are the most heat-producing weapon in the game, but you have a ton of heat sinks on this thing to mitigate that heat. So we'll have to see how heat efficient it is, and our pilot is Ozone, who is the only other pilot that has an above-average guts ability, so we'll be able to tend to that heat better than a traditional pilot, or a standard pilot. All right, and the map we're going to be using is the Death Valley map because there's no water on here. I don't want to be able to use water to cool myself down, but neither does my opponent have that advantage. So that's going to be more or less the setup here. So very much going for a cooler operating loadout. Now, personally, this is the style of mech design that I actually prefer. I prefer cooler running mechs. I don't think that the mechs that are in the game right now are maybe geared for that. And also, once we get into the mech lab, you could gear your mechs more for a heat-efficient loadout than what we currently have. But there are definitely mechs that aren't in the game yet that also are pretty cool running. And if those mechs get added in, I definitely could see some revision done to this loadout, specifically because, hey, we're not able to get up enough of our value to actually match the value of our opponent if we're utilizing all of the heat-efficient mechs. Again, I could just double up on, for instance, an Awesome and get my value up that way, but I wanted to showcase all the quote-unquote heat-efficient mechs, and we'll see exactly how efficient they are. This is very much experimental. I have never really tried out this aspect of the game, running with a cool lance where you're not really having to worry about heat. Let's see how much that is the case. I have a feeling that specifically the Hunchback and the Awesome, we're still going to have to worry about heat, but the mechs are still supposedly heat efficient. All right, let's go ahead and move over to try and get contact. One thing that we have a great advantage of with our Locust here is very good foot speed. And then I think we're just going to go straight towards the middle with our heavier mechs. The problem with the Hunchback and the Awesome is the low foot speed available to us. I think we're going to want to post up the Awesome here because we might have a good sight line on this area where our opponent may show up. So I think we're going to run for that location. I'm not sure if we're going to have any contact with our opponent just yet. And as far as the Centurion goes, we'll put her right in this area, and then maybe we'll go either over here or over here. We can use some indirect fire with the LRM-10. Not exactly sure why the arc is being... I think that's a little bit of a bug. Yeah, that's not supposed to be showing up right now. All right, so currently our opponent has moved. No sensor contact. Oh, is that arc ever going to go away? There we go. All right, so to try and get sensor contact, I'm going to go ahead and move up as... Well, you know what? I don't want them to come over here. So I think if you establish contact, the opponent's going to come... the AI opponent is going to go towards the closest contact. And unfortunately, if I were to run over here, we'd actually draw the opponent in the direction I don't want them to be drawn in. So let's start moving around this rock. and see if we can get anything on the sensors. And then we'll continue to run in this direction with our hunchback, maybe get in behind these rocks. And then the awesome will run in to cover here. We should have a good sight line down in this area, the crossroads. And then finally, our Centurion.
I'm receiving you.
We could move over here. If we get a sensor contact again, we might draw the opponent in the wrong direction, but I don't want to group up too much here. We might even be at an advantage of keeping our Centurion back. Although most of her firepower is close in, the LRM-10 is a pretty decent long-range poke. And I think my opponent is more a short-range engagement kind of style. So, although we have a couple, well, the Hunchback being our main close-range combatant. Okay, we do have our contact. They are going down the road, so that's actually where we want them to go. For now, I'm not going to move Witness, because I want to be able to use the sensor lock when it is in our advantage to do so, and currently it's not in our advantage to do so. So let's just go ahead and reserve.
Holding action, Commander.
Now, we were pretty medium mech heavy, as are they, so... See, we already have line of sight, and they probably have line of sight to me too. I have a feeling that Jenner's not going to live very long, all things considered. They are evasive. More than likely, I'm just going to go ahead and use Witness to sensor lock the Jenner.
I hear ya.
I will move the Locust a little bit because I don't want it to be engaged by the Jenner, even though I could move in here and attack. I think we get rid of that evasive for now while it's there. Let's just go around just a little bit, maybe even over into this cover, in case it becomes a problem. We'll swivel around here in case that Jenner tries to come after me.
No need to tell me twice.
And then we'll use the sensor lock on the Jenner. Now, again, reiterating, you don't need line of sight here because I don't have line of sight. Go ahead and do that. Now, this would give line of sight if I didn't already have it, but it is going to remove that sensor lock, which is, I mean, sorry, the evasive, and give us a sensor lock status on that mech. Now, the Jenner being fleet of foot, I don't expect that the opponents will show up in the meantime. So, we can really take advantage of the opponent here. As a matter of fact, I can see them right now. I actually am not going to move now, though, because I don't know for sure, but they may have some long-range capability, and I want to have evasive for any attack that they may do here. So let's go ahead and just reserve. Have their last medium mech go. I know for a fact that their assault mech is a... Yeah, so there we go. There's the LRMs. So we're going to dodge a couple of those. That's why I didn't move. Okay, now... As I was saying, their last mech, their assault mech, is a Victor, which I know is more of a close-range combatant. All right, so at this point... Can we get in behind? Can't quite make that out. Looks like we can. I might not be able to swivel in a way that doesn't give my back. They, in theory, may be able to get my back. What can we do with our hunchback, though? Let's plan out our move the best we can. So it looks like the Hunchback's going to be out in the open if we want to attack this turn. Now, this is the turn that, in my opinion, we really do want to attack. If we can. Ideally, I'd want to have gotten into cover before I did that. Let's just move in here and engage. We're not going to be at the ideal range, but we're going to get up there as close as we can. Now, I could have run up there and not attacked, but I can't not attack. Now, the one thing with the guard trait is we don't really even need to be in cover for our Hunchback. We could stay stationary next turn because the guarded trait is actually better than cover, and you can't stack the two. All right, so we've got a great chance to hit here with all of our medium lasers, and we can see the heat that we're building up. It's still pretty significant, but we have to keep in mind how many weapons we're firing here. A lot of medium lasers. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 medium lasers. This is a huge amount of firepower. Let's go ahead and fire this off.
Okay.
Okay, pretty devastating damage there, which we could follow up with our Centurion if we want. Now, the Centurion does not have the bulwark trait, so... You know what? I'm going to reserve one more time. I want to see the Victor move before we move anyone else here.
Waiting for the right move.
Okay, there's the Victor. Okay, so not likely to be engaging us next turn or this turn.
Commander?
Okay, so the question is, do we want to get in behind the Jenner or not? If we get in behind, we mitigate the cover, but we won't have the LRM-10 to our advantage. If I fire from where I am, I could probably hit with everything. Oh, we don't have line of sight. Never mind. So really, our where we are at, so I would have to move slightly to be able to turn to fire. Is there where I can rotate in place? Sure there is. So if I move there, I stay out of line of sight. If I move here, I'm in cover. I think staying out of line of sight is probably the better move, because I know the Centurion's going to take fire, so... I'm very tempted, though, to take the back. Yeah, we're just going to be a little bit more conservative with this move. Alright, so that's within the minimum range of the LRM, so we don't want to do that. Let's back up a little bit. Back up a little bit more. How about there? That's better. Okay. Let's move right there. They're going to lose our evasive. We're not going to have cover. We're not going to have really any defenses. And... this is firing everything we have, and we can see, yet again, this is quite a bit of heat. So, this is not necessarily cool running, where, in my opinion, the Locust could fire its weapons and really not build up any heat at all. Especially in its default loadout. Well, I am going to go ahead and fire everything. This is meant to be cool running. We're supposed to be firing weapons all the time. And we have a 100% chance to hit with that large laser, so this could be some good damage here. Alright, we blew off its arm, which is going to mitigate its damage quite a bit next turn. Alright, so now the question is, can we get Ozone into a position to get line of sight? Because if we can do that, we're going to be doing a ton of damage here. So, this is probably a good spot right here to attack from, as it will give me vision in this entire area. Now, we don't actually have direct vision of some of these guys, so we can't shoot at them this turn, but we can shoot at the Jenner, who... is going to take a lot of damage here. 90% chance to hit. Pretty good. We got 3 chances to shoot. And here, yet again, is this mech really that heat efficient? If we do 3 PPCs, we can see that the bar almost is filling halfway. So I would argue that the Awesome is not as heat efficient as the bar in the loadout screen indicates.
Here we go.
I mean, it's heat efficient for the kind of firepower it's throwing down there, but you have to keep in mind the heat efficiency of the weapons, which is not something that's really indicated at this point. So if you're not familiar with BattleTech, you might take this on face value and be like, oh, well, the Awesome is really heat efficient. It's the second most heat efficient mech in the game. But really, the weapons it's slinging are the most heat-draining or heat-causing weapons in the game. All right, so we're going to go ahead and reserve here with Witness, as I feel like we don't really have a clear target, because it's very likely that this mech will run, which it has done. So we're going to want to remove the evasive. That's the more important thing. Let's go ahead and... well, at this point, reserving is actually not that great of an idea. And the reason it's not that great of an idea is because we don't have any defensive bonuses going for any of our mechs. So going going now is advisable over reserving. Unfortunately, if I go now, it's going to be
What can I do for you?
witness moving. And I'm going to move witness to try and get into this fight a little bit more. We won't have line of sight this turn. But next turn we could maybe do a flank or something. Let's go ahead and use our sensor lock. So one of our mechs is going to get hit here without any defense, and there's nothing I can do about it. The important bit is that we get rid of the evasive so that our other mechs can fire more effectively. So here comes the LRMs. We're not going to have any defense to this, so whatever hits is going to hit. Did hit the head, unfortunately. Don't want to take too many of those. Alright, at this stage, Buckshot can just stay right where she is. She will get the guarded trait for doing so. So, that sounds like a good plan to me. And we've got a really good chance to hit because we just got a sensor lock. Now, as we can see, heat is building up here quite a lot. So, continuously alpha striking, not really because we still have a small laser that we could alpha strike with, but firing all your weapons, even on a quote-unquote heat-efficient mech, is building up a lot of heat. I really thought that this mech in question wouldn't be all that heat-efficient, and this is confirming exactly that. Alright, let's go ahead and fire these suckers off, as this is going to be the best opportunity, I think, to fire these off. Well, not necessarily the best, it could get better, but for now, this is pretty good. Now, one thing about the quick draw is needing to get in close because it's very close in, like our Hunchback. A lot of medium lasers and an SRM-4. The downside of that mech is it has lighter armor than a Hunchback, so it's pretty challenging to utilize properly. Now, we're at the proper range. Unfortunately, with Wildfire, I will not be able to get any defensive bonuses, though, if I stay where I am and fire. So ideally, I'd want to get into cover, but unfortunately, there's no cover around where I am, so I think we just stay where we are because we should be... we're not quite in range of that LRM though, are we? Granted, we do get a better chance to hit with our medium laser. So let's think about a move here. We can move into the cover here. Right about there. And use our medium lasers and our large laser. And just forget about the LRM for now. Even bring our small laser into play. Okay, so we're going to turn the LRM off, as it doesn't have a great chance to hit. And it is going to build up a decent amount of heat, so you can see the difference there. Alright, and we're going to be focusing on this side, so we may be able to blow off his arm, which is going to mitigate his damage quite a bit. As we can see, well, only one medium laser, but it'd still be something. Alright, let's go ahead and fire. A lot of damage on that arm. Didn't take it out, though. I mean, this is still a heavy mech here, even though it doesn't have as good of armor as a Hunchback. It's got a lot of infrastructure. Okay, finally we have Ozone, who not have line of sight yet, but we can move into a position to gain that line of sight fairly easy. And at this point, we're just more or less picking them apart. I think the opponent is doing something similar to what they did last time. They're not using their Kintaro properly. They're using it to attack from range. As a matter of fact, this might even be the same opponent that I attacked last time. I don't remember. So, yeah, I think I did choose the same opponent. Oh, well. We've got another 90% chance to hit here. And as we can see, the heat is building up to the point that if we fire again next turn, we'll shut down. But this is still a good opportunity to fire here, so we'll go ahead and take it. Okay, some pretty good damage there. Alright, now we're back around to the top of the order. Interesting. The evasive bonus came back because we stopped sensor locking. So the sensor lock only lasts one turn. That's not something that I was actually aware of 100%. So this is where the movement of your mechs and when you go can be really important. So I'm going to go ahead and reserve here the Locust. The quick draw is more or less going to go. I suspect it will get the back of my Centurion, which is not good. It's going to do a lot of damage.
Reporting internal damage.
That was a good move by the AI. And that's the one thing that the quick draw does have a little bit of an advantage towards, in that you can
Standing by.
move around, pretty mobile mech. Let's get in here behind with our Centurion, kind of back off a little bit. Although we still have the cover, maybe not a good time to move, actually. Yeah, let's hold off. Let's move Buckshot instead. The reason being is I suspect that the Centurion will be attacked again. And that attack we want to have happen in cover. So let's move in right behind the quick draw. All the weapons we're going to want to fire are going to be close range. Now, this is where we're more than likely going to shut down. And I might even take the shutdown with this attack because it's important. Alternatively, I could turn off some of my weapons here to try and prevent the shutdown. Actually, only turning off 2 medium lasers to not have a shutdown. That's not too bad. And we're going to hit rear armor here. This is still a lot of firepower, so we'll go for it. If I had the Inspire, I'd use it now because this is a great moment to attack.
If you say so.
Okay, a lot of damage there. Managed to blow off a left torso and a left arm, so that's going to really
Watch the heat.
affect the firepower here. So as I suspected, here comes some LRMs, and they're going to go in on our Centurion, so it was good that we maintained cover there. Okay, so now I see no problem moving the Centurion. I'll move in right there, and we'll go for another back attack here. We may be able to take out the quick draw if we're lucky. 100% chance to hit here. We can probably strike with this a couple times, so let's go ahead and fire.
Good angle. Fire it.
Okay, there goes pretty much all of his weapons except for the SRM, so it's possible he'll go for a melee attack.
I hear ya.
I think we reserve one more time. Actually, twice here. Because when I move my locus, I want to make sure that I'm not going to be punished for it. So we'll reserve again. Here comes the victor. And he's probably going to full run here. Yep. Okay, now we can move witness safely.
Waiting on you, Commander.
And I will not... no, the cover doesn't really matter because we know that we're going to move first anyway. So really just getting the best shot we can get is what's going to really matter here. So really what we're doing here, we're moving in, we're striking, and then we're moving out. Possibly a sprint next turn. Okay, pretty good chances to hit. Let's go ahead and fire that off.
Commencing Alpha Strike.
And we can see with Witness that really no heat buildup at all. This is a true cool running mech. You could Alpha Strike with a Locust all day long and never build up heat. But you'll note that the heat efficiency bar was lower than the standard Locust. It really doesn't matter because you're not going to build up heat in normal circumstances with the weaponry that a Locust has. Okay, finally we have Ozone here, which we have a couple different targets. We could try and finish off the quick draw, which we might be able to pull off, and that would be a good thing to do if we do. Or we could hit the victor here. We have a better chance to hit, although it's only a difference of 5%, and he's got evasive. So really the target here is the quick draw. Now, I'm not going to fire everything because we would shut down, but I will fire off 1 PPC, or 2 PPCs, and we do cool down a little bit when we're only firing 2 PPCs versus the 3. So let's fire. Okay, that one missed, unfortunately, but we did manage to knock him down. I might go in for the kill with the Locust, although it's going to be tough to pull that off.
I hear ya.
So I'm going to want to break line of sight with the Victor so that it's harder for him to come in and attack me. That's probably as far away as I can get. I could move into cover to try and mitigate any damage if he does manage to throw it out on me, but I'm just thinking that it's going to be really hard. Let me try and plan out my move a little bit smarter. I think this is going to be a lot harder for him to get sight lines on me. Now, the downside is, I think after my Locust goes, the quick draw is going to go here. Now, granted, the quick draw is very damaged. And we're going to go for a called shot on the center torso, which has taken a lot of damage. Hopefully, we'll be able to take him out. Granted, Locust doesn't do a lot of damage, even with this variant. Okay, we've got a 100% chance to hit, though, so we'll fire at the center torso. Okay, and we did manage to kill him. So we've broken direct line of sight with the Victor here. Now, we didn't use our sensor lock, though, so the Victor still has evasive until he goes. Okay, Centurion continues to take damage. At this point,
I'm here.
I don't want the Centurion to continue to take damage. So I'm going to make sure we've broken line of sight as much as possible by moving here. We'll go ahead and do an indirect strike.
Affirmative.
Which is not a great chance to hit here. And they will be able to dodge, but it's, you know, better than nothing. Yeah, dodging a fair amount of that. Did manage to hit the pilot, though. Alright, this is where we kind of have a tricky proposition here, because
Hey.
ideally we want our Hunchback to be guarded. And I think we take the turn here to move away a little bit, because we know that Victor is going to come after me. We're going to move away a little bit. Let me see if I can get a better move going. Ugh. Alright, at least break line of sight. And then we're going to just brace. And the reason I'm doing this is to try and cool off. We've built up a lot of heat, even though this whole strategy here is cool running, so you attack every turn. Fortunately, with all the heat sinks that we have, we are pretty much good to go this turn. So he can see my Hunchback, but my Hunchback is guarded at the very least, which means that they will reduce the damage by 50%, which is pretty good. And no longer is the Victor having evasive, so we can hit the Victor with our PPCs. We know that 2 PPCs can be fired without building up heat. It will actually cool off a little bit, so we'll fire those off. Now, if I did fire my third one, we would shut down. So that's why I'm not doing it. Okay, at this point, there, I think, is no reason to move the Locust, outside of the fact that the Victor may come after the Locust and attack him next turn. But we'll try and make that not the case, if at all possible. Okay, a single missile comes in, which we're only going to take 50% on. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move Buckshot, which I think is a good call. And I'm not going to actually move. I'm just going to stay where I am because we're in a good position to attack here. And we can fire all of our medium lasers off. I don't see a reason why not. We've got 90% chance to hit. That's pretty good. Quite a bit of damage there.
Yes, Commander.
And our Centurion, we could pull into a position where we're more in line of sight, but I prefer to kind of maintain the route we're going, which is not having a line of sight if at all possible. So to make sure that that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and round this corner. Now, the Kintara over there may be able to see me, but I think they're far enough away that that's not going to be the case. And we're at a nice range band, so really this is just going to be an indirect attack. A little bit better chance to hit than I think we did last time. And no longer does he have evasive, so everything that's going to hit is going to hit. Alright, again, not moving the Locust is really a danger, because I think the Victor has enough movement that they could get at the Locust. So just for safety's sake, we're going to go ahead and sprint away with the Locust. I would love to be able to use the firepower of the Locust against this Victor, but I just don't think it's a good idea. So we're going to run into this little dry riverbed, and we'll break line of sight and make him have to move a lot more to get that line of sight. He ended up not doing that. He's just going to go after the hunchback. So it's possible that we had a wasted move there, but I just think it's better safe than sorry. And because in my opinion, that's what the Victor could have done. And we're trying to get in here and be safe. So we're not going to be moving. We're just going to continue to fire 2 PPCs. And just so that I can demonstrate, if I fired off the 3rd PPC, I would shut down. There is no point in doing that. We'll just continue to be able to do pretty good damage here without having to move, which means we're going to be guarded, and we're slightly cooling off every turn. All right, we can reserve now. Now I'm pretty much in a good advantage position because my hunchback is in guard position, and the Victor that we're facing off against doesn't have that advantage where it can use guard against me by staying stationary. So really all we have is the cover. Now we could try and move in a way that removes the cover, but honestly we're better off just staying where we are, taking 50% less damage, and just unloading on this guy. Now we can only unload like this one more time, but we're going to try for it. And you know what? Screw it. Let's go ahead and inspire Buckshot here so we can do a little bit more damage perhaps. Okay, our chance to hit has gone up, and hopefully our heat mitigation has gone up a little bit too, but doesn't appear to be the case. Let's go ahead and fire. We're going to ignore the cover because of benefit of the Inspire.
I'm melting in here.
Okay, so in this case, it does look like the Kintaro is trying to get in on line of sight on the Centurion, so we're just going to move back a little bit. So the Centurion has a rock in the way of it and the Kintaro. And we'll open up with our LRM, which at this point has an 85% chance to hit, so pretty good.
Copy that.
Oh, we still missed with some of that, though. Okay, so finally we have the Witness, which we're just going to reserve. And we're going to reserve one more time. We're going to have the Victor go, which the Victor may just stand and trade with the Hunchback, which I do not think is in his advantage, as we're just tanking those shots. And
Waiting on you, Commander.
I can get in to shoot. It's not going to be a great shot, but it's better than nothing, so let's just get in there.
Affirmative.
Okay, we'll fire everything because there's no reason not to. Heat doesn't really get built up in this mech. Yeah, we got some misses there, but we did manage to maybe knock out the AC-20. I'm not exactly sure. Let's see. I think sometimes weapons need more than one hit to really be knocked out. All right, so again, we're going to go with 2 PPCs. If we manage to hit that arm, we'll take out his AC-20, which is his main damage. Unfortunately, it looks like I missed twice there. That was just not a good roll. Okay, so a Witness should probably move out of line of sight at this stage. Back where you were, more or less. This might even be... If we move into the... Yeah, let's move in here. Well, let's sensor lock him. I think sensor lock gives us a bonus to hit anyway, so... We're not wasting our turn by moving where we did, and he should be within sensor range, so we should be able to sensor lock him. Now, we can't do this mech because he's too far away, but this mech, we can sensor lock just fine. You have to be within that blue circle of your sensors to be able to do sensor lock. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, here comes the Kintaro. Finally closing in, something it should have done a long time ago. Now, as much as the Kintaro is kind of screwing my opponent, you have to keep in mind that they have 5 million extra budget over me, so I was at a disadvantage coming into this fight. All right, let's go ahead and attack the Victor. 90% chance to hit. I think people were saying that it gave me a bonus to hit with sensor lock. I don't know if that's true or not. It doesn't say that here. I'm going to have to turn off a couple of my medium lasers, maybe 3 of them, yep. Let's go ahead and fire. That's why I used Inspire last turn, where we could really pour in the fire. Alternatively, I could just sit there and try and cool off a little bit, but I still think 5 medium lasers is really good firepower, especially as the Victor has taken a lot of damage at this stage. And we may be able to take him out before he gets a chance to go. Or at least mitigate some of his firepower. So you can just go ahead and stand where you are and unload with your LRM-10 again. Now, unfortunately, we're hitting him in spots that we don't really want to be hitting him in. Yeah, so he's going to fire off things. Oh, no. Okay, I guess we did knock out the AC-20.
Indicator shows minimal damage.
Yeah, I mean, the Hunchback is just tanking the damage of the Victor nicely. Which is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the Victor. I think against a much lighter mech like the Hunchback, it just doesn't really pair very well. A lot of its tonnage is wasted on jump jets. All right, let's go ahead and fire off our 2 PCs like we've been doing. Hopefully this time we hit. Oh, we're still missing here. I'm trying to blow off that arm if I can, but it just hasn't been going my way. All right, we'll go ahead and reserve Witness at this point. Okay, some more LRMs coming in. But that's not to the advantage of my opponent to continue to sling them. As we can see, it didn't move at all. Okay, so at this stage, we'll have Wildfire just do what she's been doing, which is slinging LRM-10s.
10-4.
Okay, we've made him unsteady. Now with Buckshot, I'm hoping we'll be able to maybe even knock him down. Okay, so maybe we can put in one more medium laser. We'll take a little bit of internal damage if I do that. Which, it's not the end of the world, but you know what? We'll just remain cool here.
Locking in target. Critical hit, Commander.
I was kind of hoping we'd knock him down, but
I'm melting in here.
let's reserve one more time. And reserve again. So that we can make sure we're moving. Okay, that's going to be a lot of damage. But yet again, we're tanking it because we've got the 50% reduction.
I'm sitting on the fusion reactor.
Okay. So let's have Ozone go and attack. Don't think we can get rid of... Yeah, we can't get away with that third PPC strike yet.
Engaging target.
Alright, a lot of damage.
Waiting on you.
We'll have the Locust run up here and fire away. I mean, this guy has pretty much no armor in any location except for his arm. And we're going to be attacking from the side anyway, so let's go ahead and fire off.
This should be good.
Okay, we missed quite a bit there, but we did manage to take out the arm. So at this point, the Victor is in a lot of trouble. Now, I don't know if it's, you know, take him out levels of trouble, but we could try for it. As a matter of fact, I think it's worth trying, so
What can I do?
I'm just going to keep the Witness. I'll move up a little bit so we can get in a better range bracket.
Moving out.
This is very dangerous, what I'm doing, because the Kintaro could counterattack me, but we're going to go center torso here, go for the kill.
Take this.
Now, I don't expect to get it, but I do expect to be able to follow it up with either Buckshot or Wildfire. Okay, now the Kintaro is coming in. That should have been a run, though. Okay, so Buckshot
Standing by.
could, in theory, get behind the Kintaro. So Wildfire is going to attack. And this might seem like a silly attack at 75% chance, but we have a chance here to kill the Victor. So I'm going to go for it. Alternatively, I could back up a little bit so that the Kintaro can't take my back, because that's a real risk that I run here. So let's change to reverse. Put our back to the wall so the Kintaro can't get behind me, and then we'll attack. That's a wise move, I think. Because right now our Centurion is fresh except for that back, so we don't want the Kintara to be able to get behind us. Now we'll go after the Victor, go for the center torso, and fire off our LRMs.
Target locked.
Alright, we managed to kill the pilot with a head hit, so... Bye-bye, Victor. Now we've got Buckshot.
Yes, Commander.
Now, unfortunately, Buckshot is running pretty hot, but we'll go ahead and inspire. Inspire.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay, and then we're going to move in behind. And we're going to really go after this Kintaro. As much weapons as I can possibly fire. Yeah, I don't want to shut down in this condition, though, because the Kintaro still is a major threat. But at this point, looks like we can get away with turning a couple of our medium lasers off. I will fire this small laser because I still think it's a good idea. Let's fire off everything into this guy's back. It looks like he still has evasive, though, so this is really risky.
Affirmative.
Oh, it does ignore evasive. Maybe because of the Inspire? Okay, well, we managed to take out some of the SRM ammo, but this mech more than likely has several slots of that.
My performance.
Okay, so now we are at a little bit of a problem. Oh, no, I can't get line of sight. Probably because of the hill. So, we'll move over that way.
Roger that, Commander.
It's probably not going to be a good shot, but... I think I'll sling one PPC so we can cool off a little bit. Which we didn't manage to hit. No surprise, 40% chance to hit.
That should have hit.
Nah, it shouldn't have. Okay, so... At this stage, I think we just reserve. Any sensor lock I do right now wouldn't help us too much. Let's see what the Kintaro does at this stage. I'm going to back up. So, I don't have its back. That makes sense. I'm going to fire at our Centurion, which is an interesting choice because it has not taken any damage. Okay, well... Let's move Buckshot first,
Right here.
because Buckshot should be able to get in on the back yet again. Go nice and close.
Roger that.
And this may very well kill it. I don't want to shut down, though, if I can avoid it. So we'll just turn off one medium laser and fire.
Locking in target.
Okay, took out the left torso and managed to kill him. So... well, there we have a done match. So that was at a value disadvantage. I think I have seen a comment suggest this. I may want to, in the future, when I'm fighting the AI, I may want to do a custom build with them, or maybe focus a little bit more on the loadout I'm doing, because it's clear the AI has some problems with certain mechs. So to define what I mean by that, mechs like the Centurion, for example, are a great example of a mech, and the Kintaro is even a better example of a mech that the AI doesn't necessarily use properly. So the Centurion, yeah, it has an LRM, which means it can shoot at long range, and the Kintaro is another example of that. But a lot of its firepower is going to be things that are longer range, or actually shorter range. You've got two medium lasers, a small laser, and a large laser. Large laser may be able to reach a little bit of a range, but the medium lasers and the small lasers are useless to you at that kind of range. Even more so with the Kintaro, because that mech is really designed for close-in combat. A lot of SRM-6s and a medium laser or two. None of that is being used when you're just shooting out the one LRM-5 that you have, which is pathetic damage. And we saw exactly that. This was a match where I outnumbered my opponent at every stage. And I think that's the one deficiency of the AI at this point. That Jenner ran in, that was suicide. Then you had, what was the next mech? The quick draw, run in by itself. Then it got destroyed. Then you had the Victor run in by itself. Then it gets destroyed. And then, finally, when all of the other enemy mechs are destroyed, the Kintaro comes in because it has to, because it doesn't have line of sight anymore. That's kind of the deficiency of the AI, and I think it can be mitigated by hand-picking the AI's mechs for mechs that don't have that kind of cross ability. I'm actually curious with the AI to do some experiments because it could just be LRM bound, that mechs with LRMs have a habit of firing indirectly even when it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to do so, or firing from long range even when it makes no sense to do so. That might be the case. So maybe if I have a mech like... I have to think of an example, but maybe the Panther is a good example of a mech that doesn't really have LRMs, but it still has a long-range weapon like a PPC. See what the AI does with that. See if that kind of solves the issue. The other thing that I could do is just choose mechs like the Hunchback that really don't have another means. I mean, it loses some of the flexibility that you could utilize, but it seems like the AI right now is just not capable of using that kind of flexibility. But in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This is Mouse Gunner, signing out.